Welcome to Northwest Favorites, the heart of Portland wrestling. I'm your host, Frank Culbertson, and this is a series celebrating the men who lived right under the top tier. Not always the megastars, but the wrestlers who make Portland wrestling work. The dependable main eventers, the heels who drew heat, and the baby faces fans love to get behind. The performers who brought emotion to the Portland sports arena every single week. As always, these stories come directly from the Encyclopedia of Portland Wrestlers by historian Mike Rogers, available now on Amazon. It's the definitive reference for everything in the Pacific Northwest Territory. Today, we explore 4 wrestlers whose careers spanned 4 different eras and 4 entirely different legacies. Ricky Santana, Ron Starr, Luther Lindsay, and Kenny Mayne. 4 stories, 4 paths, 4 men who each helped shape the Northwest in their own way. When Ricky Santana walked into Portland in July of 1986, the territory was at a bit of a crossroads. Business was down, stars had moved on, and the territory desperately needed someone with energy, someone young, fast, and exciting. Ricky Santana was exactly that. He came in like a spark plug, picking up wins over Tarzan White, Joey Jackson, Vern Siebert, Mike Miller, and Abuda Dean. And in the process, he immediately brought some life back to the cards. Santana won the tag titles with Brady Boone and later with Coco Samoa, and eventually became the Northwest Heavyweight Champion. He wrestled here, on and off, for nearly 6 years. In the early 1990s, he turned heel and showed he could play that role just as well, picking up 4 additional Northwest tag title reigns and a run with the TV title. Outside Portland, Santana built a major career in Puerto Rico, becoming one of the cornerstones of that territory. He also worked briefly as an agent for both WCW and WWE. In Portland, he wasn't just a wrestler. He was a shot of adrenaline exactly when the territory needed it most. When Ron Starr arrived in December of 1978, he didn't ease into the territory. He didn't start at the bottom. He walked in the door and beat Buddy Rose in his debut. Right from the start, he was treated like a top-level heel. He immediately teamed with Adrian Adonis, and the two captured the Northwest tag titles from Roddy Piper and Killer Brooks. They also challenged Buddy Rose and Ed Wiskowski for the San Francisco World Tag titles, scoring several impressive non-title wins. As a single wrestler, Starr scored multiple victories over Roddy Piper during Piper's Northwest title run, but could never seal the deal and win the championship. His overall career tells the story of a respected journeyman who could work anywhere. Starr held the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title, the San Francisco version of the United States title, and numerous titles across the territories. He wrestled until 1992 and later became the subject of an excellent book by Rock Rims. Ron Starr passed away in 2017, but his presence in Portland remains one of the most underrated runs of the late 1970s. In the history of Portland wrestling, Luther Lindsay is one of the towering names, not just for his in-ring ability, but for the profound respect he earned from wrestlers and promoters across the country. He started wrestling in 1951 and made his first Northwest appearance in 1953. From then until 1969, Luther appeared in Portland almost every year. By the time the sports arena era began in October of 1968, Lindsay was already a legend. On opening night, he defeated Armand Hussein. He would go on to win 9 Northwest tag titles, 4 of them with Shag Thomas, 7 Northwest heavyweight titles, and his rivalries were legendary: the Von Steiger brothers, Lonnie Mayne, and countless others. One of the most memorable matches of his career occurred on February 26, 1969, when he went to a draw against the great Lou Thesz right here in Portland. Sadly, Lindsay's final match in Portland came on June 7, 1969, teaming with Stan Stasiak in a loss to Tony Bourne and Lonnie Mayne. He later headed to the Mid-Atlantic Territory, and tragically, in 1972, Lindsay suffered a heart attack in the ring during a match with Bobby Paul and passed away. There's a famous story, in part truth and in part legend, that Luther Lindsay was one of the few men to ever best Stu Hart in the dungeon. Stu respected him so much that he carried a photo of Lindsay in his wallet. Bill Savage summed up Luther perfectly. He was a gentleman. Finally, we come to a figure tied deeply to the soul of Portland wrestling, Kenny Mayne, father of the beloved Lonnie Mayne. Kenny had a long in-ring career starting in 1936, wrestling all over the country before settling in the Northwest. He wrestled here in 1947 and retired in 1958. But in 1970, he came to Portland to visit Lonnie, and the Von Steigers made the mistake of roughing him up during an interview. That was all it took. At age 55, Kenny Mayne strapped the boots back on, teaming with his son Lonnie and with Tony Borne in 3 matches against the Von Steigers and Hiroshi Sasaki. He even picked up a disqualification win over Sasaki in singles competition. He returned a couple years later for another interview segment, this time confronting Tony Borne, leading to Borne attacking him and kicking off Borne and Lonnie's second major feud, this time with Lonnie as the babyface. Kenny Mayne passed away in 1992, but his brief run in 1970 remains one of the most heartfelt and emotional subplots in Portland wrestling history. A father stepping back into the ring beside his son. 4 wrestlers spanning 4 eras, but each leaving a mark that shaped the story of Portland wrestling. Ricky Santana, the burst of energy who helped carry the late 80s and early 90s. Ron Starr, the tough, talented heel who entered Portland at full throttle. Luther Lindsay, one of the greatest wrestlers ever to appear in the Northwest. And Kenny Mayne, a father whose bond with his son became a piece of Portland wrestling lore. These are the men who gave Portland its identity. These are the names fans still remember. And this has been episode 13 of Northwest Favorites, the heart of Portland wrestling, the fan favorites and fierce rivals who defined an era. It's based on the Encyclopedia of Portland Wrestlers by historian Mike Rogers, available now on Amazon. I'm your host, Frank Culbertson, and thanks for joining us today. Be sure to follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and join me next Friday as we continue celebrating the heart, soul, and history of the Pacific Northwest Territory.